Hi folks, good evening. And how is everybody doing? Just now, I'm getting it right. Yes. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? Good evening, good evening, good evening, and thank you so much for coming to spend some time with me. So, what is I trying to sort out? Right. I'll leave that there, and I am switching screens. Right, and I go in by so. Right, good, excellent. Right, so who here with me, boy? Paula, Michelle, Kinda, Edithan. Hi Daniil, hi Janelle, hi Damien. Right, yes, all inside early tonight. Hi Camille, how you doing? Hi Margaret, Ricardo. So good evening to everybody who has shown up to keep me company this evening as we get into part 2 of the whole FUL thing. And of course, I plan to address the fact that I was the biggest story of the week in local media, which ought to be odd. I can't say that it is odd for me, but it ought to be odd because there were so many other huge things taking place. But me and what I do with my time became the biggest issue this week. But that's all right. You know, people had to get the likes and shares in, and I could grasp that. Hi Marjorie, hi Gail, hi Isa. Yes, I'm sure that Gary's Facebook warriors will be here. Hi Lenlise, thanks. Hi Deborah, hi Debbie Davidson, hi Joy Ragunanan, Anthony Williams. Stella Rich boy. Stella, who was ignoring me for the majority of the evening, has finally sauntered in and about to take up she position on the couch. Hi Stelzy Belzy. I can't flip the camera for you all to see her. As a matter of fact, maybe that's what I need to do one of these days. I need to get a new camera and set it up in a different corner of the room so that it will take in Stella and Starboy where they are settled. But to buy that camera, because the camera that I'm looking at you on here cost me a pretty penny, I'm going to have to work even harder. I'm going to have to find myself another consultancy to be able to sort myself out with a super expensive camera. A second super expensive camera. Maybe if I was a media house, maybe if I was a whole media house, like say CNMG, or sorry, that is now named TTT again. If I was a whole media house like OCM and Guardian Media and thing, where they're making money, they have advertisers and thing pouring money in when the month come and when the day come, I'd be able to have like a massive setup. But instead, I'm dipping into my own pocket. So soon I will sort out that second camera so that way I could give all them multiple angles and thing inside my studio, my at-home studio. So what am I gonna start with? What am I going to start with? I want to start with some good news. As a matter of fact, I am trying to make it a whole habit to start with some good news each live that I do. Because I feel there is so much that I talk about that tends to be, I guess, either negative or negative in some senses, critical often, and not critical as in haranguing, but certainly critiquing and deconstructing. And because plenty times I'm looking at the way things are working or not working, it could come across as if, well, there's nothing good going on here. But there is a lot good going on in Trinidad and Tobago, and I feel I owe it to my audience to make a consistent effort to point out not just the things that we're not doing well, but the things that we are doing well. And there's a lot that we are doing well. So I want to spend some time talking about the greatness that comes out of Betham. This week we would have had the opportunity to see Kareem Marcel, and Kareem is somebody that I've been planning to bring on the program for quite some time. I was supposed to have him a while back, and we had kind of set up, and then there was somebody. I can't remember if it's on my end or if it was on his end that there was some sort of glitch, and then it just didn't happen. Hey Alison Rose, I'm seeing that you're here too, right? Hi Neil Francois, Sarah Richards, all of you whose messages I'm only now seeing. Thank you so much for being here. Kareem Marcel on the live earlier. Kareem, big up your whole self. Big up your whole self, Kareem. Kareem, if I call you, you go take the call, boy. You go take the call, Kareem. Kareem, let me know. Let me know if you can take the call, Kareem. Just tell me yes. Tell me yes on the chat. And if you say yes, you can take the call. I'm calling you now, Kareem. I'm calling you now. Alright? So I want to big up Kareem. Kareem is a son of Betham, the Betham Sealots area. Kareem is an activist. Kareem is an entrepreneur because he has his own company. I don't know if he just come out and tell people that he have a company. Hey, Kareem say he go take my call. All you watch thing. Watch thing. We're doing it live. Live and direct. Right? We're gonna talk to Kareem Marcel. Kareem, I'm calling you now. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to all my Newsers family and friends.
Congratulations, my darling.
Thank you very kindly.
So, Kareem, you and I, we've known each other a really long time. And we often see each other on the People campus and hail each other out across the campus. But now that you have graduated from Hugh Wooden Law School, I'm not likely to be seeing you on the campus as regularly. But let's talk. I want to talk about you for a little bit. Tell me about growing up in Betham. Just paint a picture for us.
Growing up in Betham, well, personally, in our home, we grew up in a very humble household. In the sense that whilst we were poor financially, we were exceedingly rich in morals and values.
Right.
And I think that is the first thing that impacts how I will view my community, as well as what shaped me to the individual that I am today. And one of the main things that my community, of course, is faced with, that we can't run away from and that we are dealing with, it's issues surrounding crime, poverty, single parent homes, and so on. And it's very easy in our community. Why poverty exists across the board. It's very easy in communities like this to go to a life of crime, right? And it is something that many times we see single parent households, and we have a lot of single parent households in the Congo. But when we go out looking for male role models in our community, many times want to watch and judge by performance in terms of how persons started to live and how they are living now. Many times the examples that many young people see in these communities is that of the gang leaders. The ones who they knew grew up poor, but today are wearing the most expensive, driving expensive cars, living a certain lifestyle. And they sometimes see the glitch and glamour, and many times persons feel that it's a matter of peer pressure of getting young persons into these lifestyles. Many times they are in awe of it because of that sort of not having that level of guidance in certain parts. But I'm grateful to say tonight that myself, Isaiah Philip, Ajam Crosby, so many young persons within our community have been drastically changing and turning around that cycle that we have been seeing over the years.
Because it's not just you, right? It's not just you. There are lots of other young people inside communities like your community that have been, they've been stepping up and they've been doing a lot of amazing things.
Most definitely. And there's so many examples in our community that we can point to, because we produce so many positive citizens, whether it's in the field of education, policing, the culture and the arts, you name it. And that is why I think that while 20 years ago it wasn't as good as it is now in terms of turnaround. We have seen, especially through government policies. And many times we often say that, the government don't do anything, the PNM neglect these communities. But if you watch, and And if you watch it in terms of the government policies, many have been
Identify one policy. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to identify one policy.
The first policy is gate. The first policy is gate because many persons in my community who 20 years ago would have wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever the case may be, they didn't know where the first fund was coming from to pay for it. So while they're extremely well in PhD, and perhaps even care they may have done so not enough to get a scholarship or full scholarship, but a full scholarship or something like that. But now they're in a position where once they have the matriculation, once they can satisfy the basic matriculation in any premier local institution that we have here, universities, they can fulfill their dreams. And I think that is where many of our young persons in these communities have been running to take full advantage of.
Okay, all right. So I don't want to make this just about Betham. Yes, you are. Yes, you are from that part of Trinidad and Tobago. You're from that community. But you're also an individual. Your own self, your own personality, hopes, dreams, etc. So why law? Why did you choose law? How or did law choose you? What led you to become to follow this path?
Yeah, I actually chose law from very young. I went to Second Boys Art School, and a school that I hold very dear to my heart, and it's a school that would have shaped me into, formative in my very formative years, to shape me into the young person that I wanted to become. And right next to Second Boys is the office of the DDP, and I would always from perhaps from Standard 1, always watching these attorneys passing up and down, whether it's DCP and so on, and we'll watch over the school wall and see them carrying out themselves in such dignity and honor. And I would always watch them in admiration. And I said, I want to be like that. I want to dress nice like that. I want to care about myself with that level of decorum and integrity and so on. And that is where I started. And then eventually, growing up in a household where my mom tried heavily on activism, I realized that from very young, and I started activism from as early as 12 years old, in terms of advocacy and those kind of things.
Big up to Schumer. Big up to Schumer. Schumer is a giant. So big up to Schumer.
Yes, indeed, yeah. So many times I would see the injustices that is plaguing our communities. And many times, years ago, like about even 10 years ago, even under the state emergency, for example, when you sit back, I remember I was preparing for National Youth Parliament in 2012. I was a Form 6 student at Trinity College at the time. And the day before the Parliament, there was a stolen phone of a son of a police officer. And somebody who sold it to someone who was on the corner. I was selling in my mom's shop on the road, and the police officer came. They found the person who had the phone. However, the lady who bought the phone, she pointed out to a group, one of young men who was lying by the shop, and she said, "He sold me." The police officers decided that they wanted to take everybody around that to do an ID parade. So they, in my Trinity pants, in my white jersey, because my shirt was off, reading and preparing and making my notes while selling in the shop in order to prepare for youth parliament. An officer told me, get in the jeep, get in the tray of the jeep, arrested me and took me down to the police station.
Wow.
And so many other young people. It so happened that I was a member of the Beacon Gardens Police Club, and they didn't take away my phone. I was able to call the deputy commissioner at the time, the DCP Craig at the time, and tell him, Mr. Craig, I have your parliament in the morning, and they arrested me. I don't know what I did, except, and that is how I was the only one that was able to get released that night, right? And afterwards, these young men had to spend the night in Israel, and that was so unfortunate. And I want to be, and I said I had to do something about it. I had to be in a position where I could, fight for these persons' rights in my community. Yes.
And so that's why you decided to do law. I know, I hope I didn't give away too much of your business by saying that I'm aware that you have a company, that you own a company, because I know that you are also an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yes, I am. It is something that from very young, I said apart from, my professional career and so on, I also want to be a businessman. I want to be able to live a certain life and provide for many, my family, my future family, my present family, so many persons around me. And, so we form, my siblings and I form ourselves, with the guidance of my mom, into a construction company. And we have been in recent years started construction. And well, even recently, we would have delivered the mover community swimming pool to another company, but I would have spearheaded the project. All this while juggling school and so on. So,
No. Kareem, you're making that up. You're making that up. Black people not supposed to be industrious and well educated and running business and them kind of things. So you're making that up.
And of course, we're supposed to do it for free because yeah, we're supposed to do it for free.
Yes. So you didn't build the pool for free for them, boy?
No. We don't do those things.
You build them for your services, boy. You open a company and you build people for your services. Yeah. Sit down and do it for free and then after that you catch and tail. Nah, Kareem.
Nah. Shame of me. It's really a shame of me.
You move to type there tall, Kareem. You move to type there tall. I got to start calling names and things and make you out on the socials. Kareem, thank you so much for taking my call. I know it was real impromptu. I know you're taking in the live, but I wanted people to hear part of your story.
Thank you so much, and thanks for giving me the opportunity. Everyone, please enjoy your night. I love you all.
All right, love you too, darling, and compliments of the seasons because it's coming up to Christmas time.
Thank you very kindly.
Good. Take care, love. Bye. Right. So that was Kareem Marcel, who we bigging up. And I don't just want to big up Kareem alone from the Beetham area and the Beetham community. I want to big up persons within those communities who, regardless of what life is throwing at them, they just get up when the day come and they just do the damn thing. Whether it's making it to work, making it to school, making a living, keeping the family together, and continuing to strive forward and to move ahead. Because certainly, let me speak for myself. Let me talk for myself, right? I don't live in a community like Sealats and Beetham. So I can't possibly begin to understand the challenges that persons from those communities face in terms of stigma from outside communities, right? Because we know who we are and we know how we are. We just judge people. I also, because I don't live in those communities, I can't begin to understand the level of challenges they would be facing coming from communities that are heavily troubled by crime and other social issues. I didn't come from a background like that. So when I see persons having those kinds of challenges and coping with those kinds of challenges on a daily basis and still coming out and doing the damn thing, kudos to you. Big up your whole self. And when I see Kareem, because Kareem and I have been friends and I followed his life on social media. I mean, I always reading Kareem's posts and commenting on Kareem's posts, and we chat with each other infrequently. I'm always looking at the things that he's talking about and the things that he's identifying, and I'm there thinking, wow, so many of us have such a varied life, such a varied existence in Trinidad and Tobago. Black culture is such a varied culture in Trinidad and Tobago. You have black people that will come from very, very upper class situations all the way down to very, very working class situations. So it's not, everybody don't have the same experience. And you just have to remember what your privilege as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, from time to time you just have to stop and think about, yeah boy, I don't have to think about those things when the day come, I have some privilege. So even though I might be, black just like Kareem, from working class parents, it's not working class from the same area. So there's a reality that Kareem would have had that I have never had to deal with, and I must appreciate that I've never had to deal with that, and that persons from that community continue to strive on a daily basis. And so big up to Beetham Gardens. Whether or not you have a law degree, whether or not you have a company or a construction firm, big up to Beetham Gardens. Well, give me 2 seconds. I need to go and I need to go and close a door now that a certain madam has decided to join me properly. I will say this, dog ownership has not been without its excitements, and I am ever so grateful that my audience is such a patient audience. So we finished talk about beatum. Today I went looking in my panty drawer. Now, as a woman, that is basically where cotton drawers when the day come, right? But I had on a nice outfit, so I didn't want lines and thing to show, because then it has some people this can't deal up with lines. So I went. There's like about this easily the tiniest underwear that I would wear at this stage in my life, right? So I went looking for this. But do you know what I found when I went looking for this? I went in my panty drawer looking for this. And let me show you what it is I find. I find this quank in my panty drawer, trying to find out what in my purse when the day come. So I went in my pantry drawer. I found this. I found that. I find a box of panty shields, right? I find a box of panty shields, and I find this quank in the midst of the panty shields and them. Now, Olia, let me tell you something. I have been in relationships with people, and never not once, whether we together 5 years, 6 years, 1 year, 2 weeks, never not once talk about my pocket and what in my pocket, and if my pocket fat or my pocket skinny. So imagine when I have to have this quank show up in my panty drawer to ask me how much money I'm making, what I'm doing to make that money, whether I'm qualified to make that money, whether there's a conflict of interest with me making that money. And I stop and I say to myself, hold the fuck up. Is we bullying? Is we sharing a pillow when the night come? Is your last name Barrett? Because you know me ain't taking nobody else's last name. Only my father's last name will I be walking around with in this life ever. Your last name ain't Barrett. We is not sharing a pillow when the night come. And when the late night come, me bending over for you. So why is you asking me all them questions, and why is you in my panty drawer? So Kejan Haynes, and you know what? I can't even say that I'm necessarily vexed, and I will explain to you why I'm not necessarily vexed. The FOI request that they sent out went out many months ago, several months ago. And I was aware that the request went out several months ago. So let me talk all you through this. And after I've talked to you all through this, because I know people wanted me to jump out at the start of the week and explain and defend. Me don't have to explain to nobody where my qualifications come from, if I qualified to do it as I'm doing, and why it is I'm making the money that I'm making. So I did not feel any concern to jump out to explain nothing at all. So, where it start, boy? So let me go from where I became aware of things. When that story break about Tuesday. So my good partner Devon sent this to me Tuesday. Just before Devon sent this to me, did I put that screenshot, boy? Jeez on ages. Let me go and find the screenshot for you. Let me find it. It here. Right. Look it. The 7th of November, well, you seen the whole WhatsApp conversation there, right? The 7th of November, Kejan sends this to me. Hi, Rhoda. Good morning, Rhoda. Kejan here. Like me and his friend. We's not friend. Right? So it easily could have been good morning, Miss Barrett. We's not friend. Me and you's not the same age. Me and you's not the same weight class at all. So Miss Barrett to you. I'm here following up on the answer posted in the Parliament chat on Friday pertaining to your employment at the Ministry of Finance. And it was at that point, when I got to that part of the sentence, that I decided, me and bothering to answer you. Because the Minister of Finance, in his response in Parliament, made it very clear that my services, right, as a consultant were that is what was contracted by the Ministry of Finance, right? My services as a consultant. So when you start talking about employment and how long I employed there and what do some of my duties include, if I am an employee at the Ministry of Finance, and let me make this real clear to all you, because there are people who don't understand how the public service does work, right? If I am employed at the Ministry of Finance, it will be in a position that has an actual job description attached to it. Once you are employed at one of these government ministries, it will be when they are employing you, they have to employ you in an actual category, right? In an actual position. They cannot just make up a position. So it could be communications officer 1, business officer 2, assistant business officer, whatever, right? So they have to hire you in a particular position. And when they hire you in a particular position, that position will have a job description and a salary attached to it. So when I see this employment thing, I'm thinking to myself, you ain't serious about life. And I know that you ain't serious about life. And let me show you how I know that he ain't serious about life. You see, Kijan and them probably unaware that I was aware that they had sent out an FY. And they sent out an FY. Let me show you the questions that were asked in the FY. In the FY, they wanted the ministry to provide a list of names of all employees, permanent or on contract. Let me put my face up here. Next date, right? So they wanted the ministry to provide a list of names of all employees, permanent or on contract in the communications department, right? And including, various titles. They wanted the salaries, right, of all of the employees, and they wanted the names and salaries of any consultants. You will notice nowhere in the list of things that were requested did they ask about duties, job description, nothing. All they wanted to know was a list of the names of the persons who working at the ministry and the salary that people making. That is why I could tell all you, panty man investigator. That is what he is. A panty man, panty draw investigator. Because all you're not interested at all in anybody's duties, in anybody's terms of service or terms of requirements. All you're only interested in what position the person holding and how much money the person making. So when that was drawn to my attention months ago, when I tell you months ago, what month we in now? We in November. That request for information out about 4 months now. So about 4 months now, they want to know, am I employed at the Ministry of Finance and how much money am I earning how much money am I earning from working at the Ministry of Finance? Now I know I'm not working in the Ministry of Finance. I know that I am a consultant providing services to the Ministry of Finance. And it's a number of hours, a certain amount of hours, a fixed number of hours when the month comes that I am receiving a retainer for. Because if they had to pay me an hourly rate every single time, it would be much higher. So we then decided, when we realized the kinds of services and the complexity of the services that I would need to provide and billing them for the complexity of those services, the figure would have been a ridiculous figure. So we then decided, here's what, we will work out a retainer arrangement, and it would be a retainer arrangement based on a certain number of hours. And listen, if I want, I could come and sit down here and do a live that going well beyond 2 hours, pointing out the various things that I have done for the Ministry of Finance. I don't have to do that. I don't think I need to do that. It's not necessary. If they want to know, let them fill out FOI request forms. But, so, let us proceed. So, that was the story. That was the FOI request of a couple months ago. Then Rodney Charles, on the 16th of September 2022, placed this question it would go forward to be questions to the Prime Minister, right? So he placed that question on the order paper. It would have come out on questions to the Parliament on the 26th of October, but since from the 16th of September, he would have put it in. And the question would have to have been, the question would have to answer, sometime in October, right? Around late October, the question was supposed to answer, but the question only answered last week in Parliament. Look at what the questions are. The question is, will the minister state the positions held by Rhoda Barrett at the NLCB and any other publicly funded state body and agencies, and the responsibilities for each position held, and the remuneration package for each position held? So the FOI want to know, if I'm working at the Ministry of Finance, who else in the department that I'm working at, and how much money I'm making. Rodney Charles want to find out if I at NLCB, and how much money I'm making at NLCB, and where's my duties at NLCB, right? As if Rodney and them unaware that the last time I do any work for NLCB is since 2020, right? Since 2020, May 2020 is the last time I do anything for NLCB. But you know what? Shout out to NLCB, right? It could be your turn to win. So they come, they ask the questions. Rodney come, he asked the questions. And let me show you all what the answer was. The Ministry of Finance's answer was this. Ms. Rhoda Barrett was engaged as an independent contractor with the National Lotteries Control Board and provided services in the areas of communications from October 2018 to May 21st, 2020. And after that, that was it. Ms. Barrett therefore held no position with that public entity, nor does she hold any position at any other public entity. However, she provides services as an independent contractor to the Ministry of Finance in the areas of events planning and communications from time to time. Given the responses to part A, part B and C of the question are not applicable. Why? Because if I'm not holding any position there, there is no need to answer where's my salary and what my duties are, because I don't have a salary, right? I will bill for services rendered, and I'll be paid for those services when they get the invoices and when they process the invoices. Now, I am well aware that media in Trinidad and Tobago have a huge problem with me. And I understand why they have a huge problem with me. One, I don't belong to any media house in the country. No media house at all. And so because I don't belong to a media house in the country, I could get up and say whatever I want about whomever I want, and nobody can come and challenge me. Kijan write one long-ass story talking about me and journalism and conflict of interest, and at no point in time in the story is Kijan able to point out which media house I'm working for. Because if I'm working for a specific media house, Kijan Haynes, it is then and only then you could talk about me, not necessarily. It's only then you could turn around and say, well, all right, I can't provide consultancy services to the Ministry of Finance or any other ministry or any other state entity, but I don't work for a media house. You, Kijan, work for a media house. So you can't go and offer consultancy services to the state in that way, because yes, then for you, it would be a conflict of interest. I work at the University of the West Indies, and I noticed in all of the stories that they were writing, they were careful to not call me university instructor or university lecturer. They kept calling me blogger. And they kept calling me blogger because they wanted to link the whole idea of political blogger working for the Ministry of Finance. And I also want to point out, I'm not working for the People's National Movement. I am working for a government ministry, right? I have worked for other state entities in this country. I have done consulting for other state entities in this country. But they want to harp on this whole business of me being politically aligned. When have I ever not admitted to having a bias? One, I have maintained I am not a journalist. From the get-go, I have said to you all, I am not a journalist. What I do is public education. That's what I do. I see myself as an educator. I see myself as somebody who is educating the population. When I come here, I don't come here and talk party politics. I don't come here and talk party propaganda. The PNM having an internals that's taking place sometime in December. I reach here at all at any point in time to talk about PNM internals with all you. Have I ever come here on any live to tell all you who to vote for and what to vote for? At any point in time? No. When I come here, we talk about current affairs. And we talk about current affairs from the perspective of documents and evidence and facts. And I present all of that information to you all, and I let you decide whether you want to believe it or not believe it. That's why I come and I present the information. Because it's not going to be a situation where I just come and I sit down here and I just talking. Or I go and sit down in my car, because I notice that that's one of the hot topic things to do, right? Sit down in your car and rant to people from in your car. Or do like Philip and Ian Allen and them, and you're just talking off the top of your head. I never do that. I come here with evidence, I come here with information, and I come here with my analysis. But you are all free. You are all free within your own heads to draw your own conclusions about what you need to draw with respect to the information in front of you. I don't tell none of you what to think. I tell you what I think based on the information that I have in front of me. All you really and truly using my chat thread to promote people in the PNM internals. Try all the best with me, yeah? No. Try all the best with me. Not on mine. Not on my feed, because I am remaining outside of the PNM internals. I not endorsing anybody in the PNM internals. So to get back to the issue at hand. So Kijan and CNC3 and a range of other persons, because I saw people sent me screenshots. Nika Parsanlal, who has said openly on Twitter, she don't have time to read things to do news stories. She don't have time to read to do a news story. That's your whole work, but you don't have time to do it. Narissa Mandal, who want to know what? Why the Ministry of Finance social media pages have such low engagement if I'm being hired there. Narissa, who tell you that what they hire me to do is to boost their social media engagement? You know what my terms of reference are? You have any idea what my terms of reference are? You think that I handling the Ministry of Finance's social media page, that I handling the Facebook account? And you see, that alone tells me how narrow all your minds are when it comes to things like work requirements, and salaries. But then I said to myself, I said, Rhoda, pause for a second. Don't get vexed with them. Try and see things from their side. So I tried to see things from their side. And I said to myself, what is stopping any of these journalists in Trinidad and Tobago from doing their own social media shows? What is stopping Kijan? What is stopping Nika Parsanlal? What is stopping Narissa Mandal? And any of the other folks who was up in their fields all week long toting about things? What's stopping them from getting onto social media and developing their own content and developing their own audience? Laziness. That's what. Laziness. Because I tell you this, whether or not I am here doing this program, I will continue to be hired as a consultant. So anybody who feeding only the idea that the only reason I am being paid is because I am on social media, no. Whether I on social media or off social media, I will still be paid. Do you know why? I started doing lives in this format around 2020, right? When the pandemic started. I don't know how, so all you who was with me from the jump will remember. It was when the pandemic started, and I felt that media was giving a lot of bad information and misleading the public. I started doing the lives. I was doing the lives in my living room at first, just from my phone, right? I would hold up my phone, I would put my phone on a phone stand, and I would just hit live, and I would be going live. I would sit down with my phone and go live. Then I started going live with my iPad at that point in time. Then tech guy, who is a friend of mine, messaged and he said, hey, we could set you up with a proper studio thing, you know, but you had to be prepared to spend some money. I said, yeah, send me a budget now. And he broke down the range of equipment that I would need, what it would cost. And I dipped into my pocket from the money that I earning from working not one, but at least 2 jobs. As in, when I say 2 jobs, my main daily job, and then of course the money I would be making from doing consultancies. I dip into my pocket and I bought equipment. All of them working for major media houses that have equipment. Why they can't run their own social media show? So I started doing that social media show in 2020. And I'm putting it to all you that I doing consultancy work since at least 2015. Right? Since at least 2015. And as state entities consultancy work, I have been doing other kinds of work. Since the age of 19, I work in 2 jobs. Since the age of 19. It has some people who ain't know how to work. You see me, this woman, this black woman, I know how to work. So since the age of 19, I juggling work. Always have a main job and a side hustle. I have always had a main job and a side hustle. So for all it to come in 2022 and act brand new, hey, look, we find out this. Kijan and them running our old story. Because it's not now I telling only I doing consultancy work. It's not now I telling only that I have done a range of consultancy services for a range of state entities. Right? It's not now I telling only them things. So I've looked at this story. I look at when the story break, because from the time I see the WhatsApp message from Kijan, I know how media does work here. Them just send it our WhatsApp message at the point in time they have already written their story, just so that they will have a 1 or 2 sentences to pull out of wherever it is you say, to plug in to say, well, either they said this or they didn't comment. And I didn't feel the need to comment. I didn't feel the need to comment because the very first line of Kijan's story was a lie. I'm not an employee at the Ministry of Finance. I have never sat down inside the Ministry of Finance for a day to work. I do consulting with the Ministry of Finance. There are a range of services that I provide. That retainer that I am paid is a retainer that I does work damn hard for when the month come, and if they have nobody inside the Ministry of Finance could say the girl don't work. If it's one thing, nobody who, not a person who has ever hired me will ever be in a position to say she don't work and she don't show up to work and we have a problem with she work ethic. People wouldn't have an issue with that at all. You might say sometimes she a little bit sassy, she tongue a little sharp. She could give some tone and attitude when the day come. She a little bit belligerent. You could say all them kind of things so, right? Was that Chanel? PNM pay for my studio? Chanel, let me tell you something. Let us, for the sake of argument, Chanel, say PNM pay for my studio. Explain to me, Chanel, why people who working for major media houses cannot use the studio equipment and the things of the media houses to build better programs. Me even talking about better shows for yourself, you know. I am talking about why they can't build better programs for their own media house. When you sit down and you look at the programs that are being done on mainstream media, right? Look at the programming done on mainstream media. It popped down. The lighting popped down. The audio popped down. And the content, ridiculous. Total ridiculous content. So when you want to come and complain, I think at the very least, complain from a stronger position. One, don't give people the impression that I work in from a media house and so therefore I can't provide consultancy services to others. I can. I did. And you know what? The entire process I tendered, right? So I provided all of the documents that I needed to provide. I was asked, I was invited to provide documents, and I provided all of the documents that I needed to provide. Two, don't give people the impression that I'm not qualified. Because if I decide to release my resume, none earlier could hold a candle to me. None earlier. Right. So now let us go to what all you're really here for. I mean, yes, there is a sense in which Ollie was here to find out about panty drawer investigator Kejan Haynes, the greatest OJT that media has. And you know that's the next thing. Is how many media houses Kejan get fired from. So Kejan, the only way you could hold on to your walk inside CNC3 is to bust a half-baked story on me. What if I decided to give people the real story behind that news station, that virtual news station you was running, and who was funding that news station you was running? Or you know Kejan was running a news station? I can't remember what's the name of the news station now. I think it was WESN or something like that. So Kejan was running a news station. Kejan ain't pissed come and tell nobody here who was actually funding the news station. Right? Kejan want to give people the impression he's a businessman, but he start a news station. And here's the thing, right? I doing this since 2022. Kejan start a news station, wait, is in 2021, somewhere thereabouts, he start a news station. And within a matter of months, the news station collapsed. Kejan, tell people who was funding it now. Right? Tell people who was funding the news station now. Right? Tell people who was the backers behind WESN. All they want to come and talk about me? All they want to come and talk about who funding whom? All they want to come and talk thing? Tell people who was funding your news station. Tell people who was linked to your news station. Tell people why the news station collapsed. And explain to people why you can't hold on and work in any media house for any length of time. Right? You wanna be up in my business. Mine yours. Right? Mine yours. Right. So, what are you really here for? All you know you're here for the shagari backs, right? All you know you're here for the shagari backs. All you to stink. All you need to be less stink. Right? Don't be sooner. I trying to be a better person. I trying to live a better life. Where this thing, boy? Wait. Right. Where do I start? Do I start with the audio recording? So last week, we do the live, right? And I play the audio clip for you that I had. Deborah Durante, it had real people call out the thing, the backs on the comment thread. Go and read through the comment thread and you can see who was funded. Right? Go and read it and you can see who was funded. Kejan and they want to come wrong me. I's a good child though. I's a good child. Me ain't looking to come and wild up nobody and bust nobody personal information here. But Kevin, you and all here it was politically funded. You and all here it was politically funded, Kevin. Because Kevin, I hear the same thing too, though. I hear men had real political connections in the background in that news station, you know. Anyhow, let me hash. All they want to come and point fingers at me. I could sit down here and run a live for a whole evening, hours of busting mark on people, you know. Anyhow, let's get to the issue at hand. So, FUL Falll Out. Last week I played an audio tape. I played part of an audio tape. And after that audio tape, I hear men start to get belly work. I hear men get gripe. I hear men get so much gripe that the gripe went to their head and they started talk a sort of foolishness about what they go do me and ain't do to me because the information I leak in and how I causing problems for them, etc., 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 etc. Hi, Annette Neptune. Good evening to you as well. So I want to say this to the FUL dealers who were sending surreptitious threats in my direction. As you can see, here I am once again, another Sunday evening, about to talk the things, right? So no, I am not going to be backing down. Don't send no message to me to tell me to back down, or else we're going through hard, because the population needs to understand that if all you get through with the lobbying that all you're pushing for, there is going to be a change in the culture, a further change in the culture of crime and criminality in this country. So let me hydrate, and I'm hydrating this evening courtesy NLCB, with whom I did work with back in 2018 to 2020. All right, that play with water tastes good. So what to start with? So at the start of the week, I find out that we have a civilian FUL association in Trinidad and Tobago. And the interesting thing about this civilian FUL association is that the person who started it, and it's a registered entity, right? Because I went to the company's registry and I checked to see. And the guy who started this civilian FUL association is a lawyer by the name of Roper. And Roper, I've forgotten Roper's first name. Roper was actually hired by the TTPS when Christian Chandler was the head of legal. Right. When Christian Chandler was the head of legal, they had started hiring. Now, all in all, the TTPS have plenty lawyers, right? Like, it have plenty police officers in the TTPS who are lawyers, one. And the TTPS has its own legal department, two. But when Chandler got there, one of the things that happened between 2018 and 2021 was the TTPS started to hire, like give out legal briefs to external attorneys. Turns out that many of these attorneys were good friends with, or certainly affiliated with, the then commissioner and his upper level of management, right? So the people that he had hired to assist him running the TTPS. So those attorneys started to get briefs from the TTPS. Me and if I'll pick up on it yet, but legal briefs is one of the ways in which you just help people make money in this country, right? So it's a kind of CPEP for lawyers kind of thing. So the person who started this civilian, appointing so because that's where my screen is, but right. So the person who started this civilian FUL association is one of those attorneys who was working, who was providing legal services to the TTPS during 2018 to 2021, right? His name is Mr. Roper. I can't remember the first name right now, but when I see the document. So I see that they have this association meeting, and the association meeting was taking place at the Chancellor Hotel. Interestingly enough, the Chancellor Hotel belongs to the estate of the wife of Tim Gopi Singh. So it looks like it has opposition affiliations in the ownership of the hotel. So they had a meeting that was going to introduce the association and introduce the various persons. And that Facebook group, that WhatsApp group has about 125 persons in it. And I'm pretty certain if we check them 125 persons, plenty of them is either dealers or people who have more than two or three firearms, right? So we're looking at people who have umpteen firearms and upwards. I'm pretty certain of that. And we're going to get into talking about firearms and the issue of firearms and thing again. So it was an introductory meeting to talk about the structure of the association and the short-term association goals, the next step, question and answers, etc., etc., etc. And what I thought was interesting about this whole thing with this FUL group is, right after I do that live on Sunday, them call that meeting by the end of the week, and they call that meeting by the end of the week because it's drama. But look at the next thing that happened in the middle of the week. Varma Dayal Singh, one of the independent senators, he got up in the Senate and delivered a contribution wherein he talked about allowing people, more citizens, to own guns. I want to change the screen we're looking at it from because I want to zoom into it a little bit better for you to see. So he says here, let me go from the second paragraph, go down, right? He said, speaking in the debate on the finance bill in the Senate yesterday, Dayal Singh said there was a time when only the selected few, such as judges and MPs, owned firearms. He said he grew up in a home with firearms since his father, a judge, and his colleagues owned firearms and would sometimes go hunting. Now, the firearms he talking about there is a shotgun, right? Not a personal gun, because you don't go hunting with a personal pistol. You just go hunting with shotgun. He said he had no problem with the increase in the fees for firearms users' licenses. And so this is where Varma Dayal Singh starts to get me confused, because there's no increase in fees for the FUL licenses. An FUL license an FUL license costs the same thing that it has cost since, for a very long time, $150. So I don't know if the increased fees that he talking about there is the fees that FUL dealers been charging people, the $30,000, the $40,000, the $50,000, or if what he's referencing are the increased fines. Because in the finance bill, the Minister of Finance put forward a proposal for increased fines with people who are in breach of the FUL, the Firearms Act. So if he has a problem with increased fees for people breaking a law, he'd need to explain why he has a problem with increased fees or increased fines for persons breaking a law. But if he is talking about increase in fees for the FUL license, there is no increased fee for the FUL license. It's the same price it always was, $150. But the fees that we've been hearing about, the administrative fees that we've been hearing about, of $30,000 for a gun, $50,000 for a gun, $75,000 for a gun. Nope, that's not the case. So he said he had a difficulty with the government wanting to prevent people from getting firearms and firearm variations. So let me explain something to him. Varma Dayal Singh and a number of other persons are talking about gun and gun ownership in Trinidad and Tobago as if gun ownership here is a Second Amendment right. You know that in the United States there are all of these amendments, and one of the amendments is the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment right talks about the right to own and carry guns, right? And that's because in the United States at that point in time, in 1777 thereabouts, white men, and those were the only persons that were considered to be men, white men were landowners and in charge of enslaved people. And so they felt that they needed to have guns to be able to keep black people in place and protect themselves against black people. Because remember, you're dealing up with an enslaved population, people that you have put to work in bondage, and you want to be in a situation where you could control them. I'm not aware that we have ever had a right to carry guns here. People have a right to, I think they can own land. And if you are a landowner, and when they're talking about landowner, they mean somebody who is in possession of, a large quantity of land, like an estate. You are allowed to apply for an FUL, more likely than not for a shotgun, to be able to protect your estate. But this whole business of a right to own and carry a gun, that's not part of our constitution at all. And I think Senator Dayal Singh needs to come out and make it very clear, what does he mean? Because he goes on to talk about arming citizens to be able to keep themselves safe from crime, right? So let's start with it. Thanks, Joe. An increase from $150 to $300, but that increase is going to be that increase goes into effect as of 2023. $300 to get the FUL. They find $300 is punitive. $300 is a punitive fee. Look, Jensen Love and reach on him alive, boy. Jensen, You know, one of the things I notice is that the person only get to do the FOI is a friend of yours. You and Kijan, both are always is friend with the lady in Arima that only get to do the FOI. So big up to Jensen. Only come to get information for the news stories this week. Anyhow, back to the issue at hand. So currently the fees are $150, right? According to the Finance Act, once they amend the Finance Act, the fee will go up to $300, but that's next year, not right now. So when Dayal Singh is there talking about this increased fee, and he makes it sound as if it is prohibitive, $300 to get a FUL license. But the real thing that Dayal Singh wanted to do was to argue for the arming of citizens. So I said, if they look into armed citizens, wouldn't we be arming the citizens that are mostly affected by crime? And when you pause and you're looking at the citizens on a daily basis who are mostly affected by crime, it is invariably, when you're looking at it in terms of ratio, right, and numbers and percentages, it is the working class black community here that tends to be more often than not affected by crime. So is Senator Dayal Singh saying that he is in favor of arming the working class black community? Because I'll tell you something, me and think Senator Dayal Singh and other people who hot under the collar about arming people and arming citizens and arming citizens to protect themselves against crime, I really think is the working class black community that they want to be arming with guns. That's not what they're thinking of. I am telling you that for the most part, when we start hearing people talking about arm the citizenry to protect themselves, they are invariably thinking about arming the business class, arming the upper classes. That's what they're talking about. But when you start looking at who precisely, which communities are the communities that are at most risk, at highest risk for crime, which would be the black working class communities, black urban communities, do we really and truly, you think them really and truly interested in arming a black working class community? Nope, I doubt it very much. Further to that, in a situation, in situations like ours, where you have many persons who are under different kinds of stress, varying degrees of, I guess, mental well-being, how are we going about determining how many persons, which groups, right, are actually going to be armed in this way? So I was listening to Senator Dayal Singh's argument, and I said to myself, if Senator Dayal Singh is really and truly saying that the people who are at highest risk of crime in this country, those are the persons that you're going to be arming, somehow I feel that who he thinks would qualify for getting guns or would qualify for getting FULs are not necessarily the persons who would really and truly be qualifying for getting FULs. Because we don't really be watching crime stats here, you know. We tend to only look at murder, but we don't look at crime stats across the board to see all of the groups that are being targeted by crime on a daily basis. But that being said, let's get into this. I want to return to the audio. There we go. Up here. And y'all need to let me know that you're hearing, right? When it starts playing. I'm going to start playing it now. Okay.
You could run apply for a green card, go through Hollywood on your own, or you could go through somebody that will do Hollywood for you. And that's what basically dealers do. There are some dealers that all they do is just provide the firearm for the person. I need to make sure that there must not be any blackmail or corruption where it is that you're basically bribing people or telling if you don't come to me, I am not getting a firearm, you will not get a firearm. That's what police officers will do. I don't think dealer has that authority. You don't have that authority too. And that's where I had officers, very senior officers, and they were doing it.
All right, let me contextualize this. You're going to be hearing Gary speaking for a bit about what he is doing with respect to easing up access to FULs. And then an FUL dealer is going to come in and talk for a bit about what he thinks are the challenges facing the whole process, right?
Just provide the firearm for the person. I need to make sure that there must not be any blackmail or corruption where it is that you're basically bribing people or telling if you don't come to me, I am not getting a firearm, you will not get a firearm. That's what police officers will do. I don't think dealer has that authority. You don't have that authority too. And that's where I had officers, very senior officers, and they were doing it. That's what I was talking about.
Officers, so the dealers are connected.
I know how it could be done.
Dealer buys the officer, given us their dealers' own stations, their dealers' own officer.
Well, I would like to, I mean, if you have 13 firearm dealers, if it is that you all know Mr. Bello, just making sure, and I mean, I don't know if dealers come to you all, but I mean, if it is that you are dealer and you have 20 persons that apply for a firearm and you're trying to get, I'm right now just opening here for discussion to find out what best this could do. So I want people to feel like, listen, I am boxing, I'm a dealer, I can't get a gun soon. And Mr. Man here getting 50 a week. We need to make sure.
So as the meeting continues, the senior police officer remains very focused on ensuring that people could get guns sold, right? A senior police officer focused on making sure that not just the big dealers but the small dealers too could get guns sold.
No, again, they have dealers who have been in this, and they have massive, and then they have small arm dealers, small dealers, I should say. So not small arm. So there's going to be a difference. But I don't want anyone to feel that they are being left out, and there's any. I have stopped the monopoly and the extortion and blackmailing by police officers.
This person says that he has stopped the extortion and he has stopped the monopoly created by officers. Remember last week when we spoke, I indicated to you that while FUL applications go into all of the divisional police stations, yes, all of the police stations around the country, the applications eventually end up at the firearms unit, and the only person who has oversight to sign off on those applications is the Commissioner of Police. So when you start hearing that applications are being stalled at the level of the station, that does not add up and it doesn't make sense, because the application has to go to the firearms unit. Then they send it back out to an investigator. That investigator has a stipulated period of time, turnaround time, for getting that application back inside to the firearms unit. So, based on my understanding of the process, the place where the bottleneck could happen, the place where for the most part the bottleneck has to be taking place, is the firearms unit. And the firearms unit is at police headquarters with direct oversight from the commissioner of police. So when you start hearing about bottleneck in the system, and this one and looking for bribe and that one looking for bribe, it's not necessarily at the level of the police station, because no average corporal in a position to influence people in the firearms unit to fast track the application process. It is only persons inside of the firearms unit, and of course the person who has to ultimately sign off on FULs. So I thought it was really interesting that throughout the entire conversation here, you kept hearing that it's police officers in the basic station where you're dropping in the application form, that those persons are the persons that would be that would be causing the bottleneck.
Only plan of the stations, they will go crazy. They will start a batch up and until then it's ready to move. Because I'm putting an exit. Yeah.
So on the form, the FUL form, there's a space between dealer weapon serial number. I don't know, maybe not to pull it from the station. And I was going to make a suggestion in writing. If it is that, if I'm a dealer and I did something, I went through, I helped somebody with their file, submitted it, you finally get you. If at that point, if they've bought the gun from me already, or the case with the gun, if that serial number will be put into their book. Because I'll tell you, this might sound self-serving, but I'm sure everybody has some of this. You can't, you have a person who you help, and then somewhere along the line, just pass you by somebody else, and they get the same. So sometimes you really want to secure the same.
Dealers, Brent Thomas. If you're going to take it out of the station.
So this is where a dealer starts talking about the problem, what is really at the core of the corruption in the system. And I found that this was really insightful. So I want you all to listen to this, and then we're going to be moving on to a couple other things. Let me rewind it just a little bit. Right.
But here's some of this. You can't, you have a person who you help, and then somewhere along the line, just pass you by somebody else, and they get the same. So sometimes you really want to secure the
Dealers, Brent Thomas. If you're going to take it out of the stations, take it out of the dealer's hands. You want to know corrupting the.
So he just said, if you're going to take applications out of the station, you need to also take it out of the dealer's hands. Remember last week I asked earlier, what is the dealer's role in the process? How dealers involved in the process? Why are dealers a part of the process?
The dealers. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Correct.
Here's what happens.
But only the dealers.
I am a dealer. So what happens? There's a gray area. Now this chap here comes to me and he says, Brent, help me with the file. I said, yeah, but what's your $20,000? What you paying $20,000 for? Well, you know, I have to help you process your file. Then I become friends with Mr. Bido. Trinidad is a small place, we all know that. I said, Bido, look, fastest thing to make quick now. Oh, we know you're ready to win that problem, because most likely the file will pass anyway. But it fast tracks the file. This rubbish has been going on for years. Dealers should have no involvement in the processing of FUL applications. Just like you have a problem in your police station, dealers should be removed from any assistance. There's a process. Mr. Bedu knows the process. Everybody at that head table knows the process. The person puts in the application, and the only person involved in that is the police service. The police service reviews and says yes or no. The day you remove the dealers from this process is the day we start to remove corruption.
And that is the bit that I wanted you all to hear. Now there's, as I said, lots more that went on at that meeting, lots more interesting things where they were talking about the ranges. But I wanted you all to hear this bit about FUL dealers and a dealer actually getting up in the meeting and saying, remove dealers from the process. And that is when you will start to actively deal with the corruption in the system, right? And I thought, okay, this dealer understands where the problem is. So let's go back to what I was discussing last week. And let me consult with my notes. So you have a situation where you have legal guns coming into the country. And you had, at a point in time, only about 200, 300 legal guns in the country. And then within a very short span of time, that figure went up, by easily 1,000%, right? A little over 900%. So you had 2,000 persons with FULs, and those 2,000 FUL holders also had variations. Now, what is a variation? You apply for your FUL, you eventually get your FUL. The booklet is called a keep and carry booklet, right? And it allows you to keep and carry a gun. So you apply, you spend your $150. Well, by next year, it will be $300. You spend your $150. You put in your application form, because the application itself is free. So you put in your application form. the application goes forward to the firearms department. The firearms unit sends the file back to your divisional police station. Like for me, it would be 4 Roads. An investigating officer had to do all kind of checks into me, make sure, me and have a partner who have a problem with me having the FUL, and my neighbors and them may have nothing to say about me in terms of, having a temper, blah, 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 right? So they do their checks. They make sure I meet criteria. I get my certificate of good character. I get my psych evaluation, and all of those things then go right back to the firearms unit. And then when it gets back to the firearms unit, it's supposed to get into the commissioner's hands. He is then supposed to go through my application and decide, okay, all right, yes, this person meet the criteria. Boom, I get my I've been granted the FUL. Then they send the FUL back to the police station. I get the booklet. Now, in all of this time, I can't buy a gun, right? Even though I've applied, I cannot buy a gun. They send the FUL back to 4 Roads. I go to 4 Roads. I collect my booklet. After I've collected my booklet, I go to a gun dealer, a FUL dealer. So that's the first time in the process a dealer's supposed to become a part of the process. You notice all the time all I'm talking about is police officers, because it's only police officers that are supposed to be part of the process. No FUL dealer supposed to be a part of the process until I reach the point of buying a gun. FUL dealers have informally become part of the process when it comes to applying for the FUL, the firearms user's license, and that entire process. So the minute police here stop allowing the dealers to become a part of the process, because nowhere in the police standing orders are dealers part of the process, nowhere in the standing orders. And I have asked, where in the standing orders does the dealer come in? Where in the process for getting the gun is a dealer supposed to be interacting with the police service? Whether it is a police officer in a station or a police officer in the firearms unit. Nowhere in the standing orders. Nowhere. So you see, when the FUL booklet gets back to the police station, that is when I am supposed to go with my $150. Well, next year is $300, and I've given Senator Varma the Alsing heart attack. So I go in with my $150 or my $300, whether it's this year or next year, and I pay that. They give me the booklet. Then I go to a gun shop. I purchase a gun, and after I have purchased that gun, I have to go back to the police station with said gun and booklet, so that they will fill out in the booklet, this is the gun I have and the caliber, bullet, etc., etc., etc. And then after I have done that, I have to set up an appointment with the ballistics department at Forensic Center. Go to Forensic Center, fire the gun in a barrel, and after I have fired the gun in a barrel, they're supposed to record the fingerprint that the gun leaves, because of course bullets leave a particular fingerprint when they come out of when they've been shot from a gun. So they're supposed to record the fingerprint, so that way the ballistic center then has a record of the fingerprint that my bullet leaves once it has it exited my gun. Right? That is what is supposed to happen. That is the process there. And I am meant to have a certain amount of training, right? I'm supposed to learn how to handle the gun. But there is no stipulation for how much training I'm supposed to have. There is no stipulation that says I'm supposed to do a certain number of hours when the week or the year come. There is no stipulation for any of those things. And for me, those are some of the areas that needs to be addressed. People having proper training and proper and regular training and refreshing their skills. And that gets discussed in this meeting here. To the credit of the dealers and the senior members of the TTPS, they do talk about people needing to learn how to regularly clean their firearm and train with their firearm and have proper reflexes and that sort of thing, right? So to their credit, that is raised there. After I have gotten my first gun, my next question to the officer that I spoke to about this was, how do I get a variation? Because a variation is when I go back with my keep and carry booklet, my FUL, and say, I want a next gun. So the conversation was a real interesting conversation, because the officer said to me, say, well, Rhoda, in talking to you, I explained to you that an investigator the first time you apply, an investigator has to look into your background and, look at this and put together information on this file that has to go forward to the firearms unit, right? I said, yes, you did. He said, so the same thing happens the next time around. You now are down in the police records as owning a firearm. So there has to be a justification for why you are getting a second firearm. Now, in many instances, there are people who have a personal pistol and they have a shotgun. And the reason that would normally be given for the shotgun would be they are hunters, so, recreational use of the shotgun. So hunters, or they own a lot of land. Not one lot, but plenty. They own plenty land. So in situations like that, there is justification for getting the shotgun. When you start to ask for guns upwards of a personal pistol or a pistol for personal safety and a shotgun, that is when even more justifications have to creep in. Because it's only two hands, any one person have, to the best of my knowledge. I've never seen anybody with more than two hands. I've sometimes seen persons with one hand, but never with more than two hands. So people who are getting variations to their firearms user's license, upwards of 2 guns, have to have solid reasons behind why they're getting more than 2 guns. So when you start to hear men getting 5 guns, 10 guns, 15 guns, and not just personal pistols, automatic weapons, rifles, what's the explanation? Listen, up to now, me fighting down nobody for applying, I'm not fighting down anybody for applying for multiple variations. Apply. But what I want to know is how the TTPS justifying all of them variations. Who determining, yes, this one person need to have 10 guns, that other person need to have 15 guns. And how men getting approved for variations within months of purchase. So you purchase a gun in November, and then you get a variation again in January, February the following year. What's the justification? And when you have people with incomplete files, and the incomplete file reaching in front of you, and you stamping it and putting your signature, how are you, as the person who are approving people with all of these licenses and with all of these variations for these licenses, how are you looking at files that are incomplete, and allowing people to have multiple guns on incomplete files? How are you, and then even with the complete files, how are you allowing people to have 10 and 15 and 20 and 25 variations on the keep and carry booklet? So I don't understand. What on earth would be the justification for that? Now, not tonight. In a subsequent live, I want to look at the Firearms Act, right? But there are a couple videos that I want us to take a look at, because this week there was a whole joint select committee about guns. And in part of there are about 3 or 4 clips that I have here. But there's one clip there are 2 clips essentially that I figure we should take a look at. But let me look at the first.
There aren't checks.
Right. This is, for me, one of the most important questions that was raised at that JSC meeting. And it was towards the end of the JSC that this question was raised by Minister Mitchell. Let me just deal with the volume here, because I had to put it up high for the audio recording.
And balances, because and the owners of the range, they are doing nothing wrong, because there isn't any obligation upon them to ensure that you've used all your ammunition and that you leave with what is written in your book. So I'm asking you, as Minister of National Security, whether there are any plans, any mechanisms, legislative amendments that perhaps can be used to ensure that these loopholes are tightened. Because to use a gun, we accept that you have the gun and you must have ammunition. And the gun can be illegally possessed, illegally come into their possession, but of course then you have ammunition. You must have a steady flow of ammunition. And on social media, etc., when you see the amount of ammunition, when you hear the amount of corn, as they say, being let loose into the atmosphere, there must be a steady flow. And this was one, anecdotally, that perhaps could be a loophole. Are there any plans by the ministry to tighten?
Yes, in the context of the...
Before Hines answers, the question, to properly contextualize the question that Minister Mitchell was asking, he was pointing out, and maybe I need to reclip that properly so that you hear the entire thing, or you can go and listen to the JSC yourself. He was pointing out that people, FUL owners, can go to a range and they can get bullets at the range. They can purchase bullets at the range to practice with, right? But there are not enough checks and balances to keep a track of the bullets themselves. So the issue, and it was one of the things that was raised, it was raised in the meeting, the recording of the meeting last week, was that guns coming in here, and everybody knows where the guns are coming in from, whether legal or illegal. But when the guns come in, they don't come in with ammunition. And a gun, in and of itself or by itself, is not what is dangerous. It's the bullets. So it's the ammunition for the guns that become problematic. And there is no system in place in the country right now. There is no check or balance in the country right now to keep a tab on how much ammunition these dealers have, where and who the dealers are selling all of the ammunition to. There's no real check and balance in place for that. And in this course of the same Joint Select Committee, points were raised that people could change up parts on their guns. So you could, like the barrel. So you could get other parts. You could get interchangeable barrels and move a barrel from one gun and fit it onto another gun. Right? There is that possibility that you could interchange some of the parts on the guns. And so the fingerprint of the bullet becomes different. Right? The fingerprint of the bullet becomes different. So I want to show. Let me let this recording complete.
Audit on the situation that is now in front of us, an audit of the ranges in Trinidad and Tobago has begun, and initial reports have been issued. And yes, I have had reports of the kind of looseness and opportunity that you have properly described. And yes, in the context of the policy, we expect that it will cover improvements in that regard. In the meantime, the police commissioner and his officers have already begun, under the firearm law as it is now written, to tighten up as best as they could. So that matter is getting attention.
So I'm not heartened to hear that we've now started to deal with the matter. I wish there was a situation where there'd been checks and balances in place from before. And this whole business of ammunition and the fact that from 2018 to now, we have an increase in firearms dealers in the country, an increase in firearms licenses being handed out in the country, and an increase in persons being given the approval to to function as range operators, even though they don't have legally constituted gun ranges. So if you have the license to be a range operator, you can then, through that license, apply to get bullets. You all understand? Right? You grasp what it is I'm saying here. So you increase the number of FUL dealers, and FUL dealers, of course, are going to be importing not just guns, they're going to be importing ammunition. You increase the number of persons who can own and operate firearms ranges, whether or not they have a legal range or legally approved range or a certified range. They've been granted the approval by the commissioner, apparently. I don't know how, because as I was telling you last week, the understanding I have is the Ministry of National Security that's supposed to be dealing with that, right? Like via the Defense Force. So you have all of these opportunities for increased importation of ammunition. Who is keeping track, or what system is in place to keep track of all of this increased ammunition? And based on the response given there at that JSC, they're now putting in a system to start to create checks and balances for the amount of ammunition that is coming in as a result of the increase in persons with firearms licenses, the increase in people who are firearms dealers, and the increase in persons who are now operating ranges. That for me is pretty scary, especially since in the bit of the recording that I played from last week, even the members of the TTPS, the senior members of the TTPS at that meeting, as much as admitted that guns is not the problem, is the bullets on them, and keeping track of who bringing in how many bullets and how many bullets get used at a range, and whether a man go into a range and take out and buy bullets to be able to practice with at the range, and whether he uses up all of the bullets that he purchased for practicing with. Because let's say you go to a range and you buy bullets to practice with, and you use up all of them bullets, and then you take them bullets and you're going home with them bullets. Where is it registered that you have that excess ammunition? And are you then going to be selling that ammunition on the black market? So that is one of the concerns. So let me go to the piece of backs that take place in this Joint Select Committee, because a piece of bacchanal take place in the Joint Select Committee. Do I have that clip?
Minister?
Yes, I have that clip. So let's play that clip and let me clear up things from that clip. Well, I will just explain things as I understand them from that clip. So there we go.
Bearing in mind that it has been in the public domain, uttered by the former Commissioner of Police, that during his stint, very high-ranking officials of the government, including the Honorable Prime Minister, including the former Attorney General, Mr. Alwari, including Mr. Kazim Hussein, including one Minister Fitzgerald Ethelbert Hines, including other government ministers, and I want to say now in absolute, in my integrity at state, including members of parliament, one such member being Rudal Munilal, who over a period of time requested or recommended persons for firearm use for obtaining an FUL, including your good self, Minister. Bearing in mind that the Prime Minister, the former Commissioner of Police, indicated that the Prime Minister also recommended someone by the name of Michael Daniel for a firearm dealership license, also recommended other persons as well for firearms. The policy issue is this. Would you agree to a shift in policy so that prime ministers and ministers of government and members of parliament ought not to be recommending civilians, private citizens of any kind for obtaining an FUL?
Well, I don't recall ever recommending.
Himes was just supposed to hush. Actually, you know what? Let me play the whole clip. I could watch the whole clip.
Anyone for any firearm in this country. And I would want proof of that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the relevance of the question
No, it's
to the
not
remit
that.
of the inquiry.
And I'm sorry, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but is the member, is this some official statement that was made, or was just passing conversation? Is it in an official report? Because the member has just made some allegations, and I would wish to believe that they are not spurious, but he has made some allegations, and I'm not sure where it is coming from about the Prime Minister and Minister recommending and all of these things.
Right. So there are a couple of things that was said inside here. Rudal Molinal made the point that he felt that no government minister should be involved in recommending that any civilian, in their private capacity, they shouldn't be recommending them for guns. Now, I've never seen the FUL form, but so I don't know if there is space for a recommender on the form, right? I'm subject to correction on whether there is space for a recommender on the form, yes or no. So I can't say for certain about that. I can't speak to that. But let me tell you what I can speak to. Thereafter, following Monilal's comment there, some screenshots were circulated. So let's look at those screenshots. It is purported to be from a phone, Heinz Fitzgerald 1. Commissioner, I have a couple FUL applications for my security detail of soldiers. There is no objection from their warrant and the TTDF. I have watched them now for 2 years and I am satisfied that they are fit and worthy. They rotate with the CJ's detail as well. Please give them your most favorable consideration. Should I send them directly to you? Thanks. Thanks, you. Sir, yeah. Just WhatsApp me full name with reference number. The others I have not, and then it goes on. Which direction? All right. Information that you requested, sir, and the information gets forwarded, and then you see why we are in a mess. Commissioner, what is the position with the application for the guys on my detail? Sir, send me back the names and reference numbers, please. Now, there are a number of things that I have a problem with here. Plenty things that I have a problem with here. But one, if these gentlemen are on the Minister of National Security's security detail and the CJ's security detail, then they are members of Special Branch, because Special Branch is who does the security detail for these high-ranking government officials. So these gentlemen already have an FUL. So if they already have an FUL, they already have a license to carry a firearm in their capacity as members of the Special Branch, then this is what, a different FUL, a different keep and carry that they're looking for? Or is this a variation to that keep and carry? Because I'm not going to pretend that I have all of the answers where this is concerned. Owning guns is not my area of expertise. But I saw this and I thought to myself, these fellows already working with Special Branch. So it means that they already have an FUL. So is Heinz asking for a variation? And then if the commissioner thinks that something is wrong, they have no FUL, law enforcement has precept, not FUL. Okay, all right. So according to someone on the live feed here, they don't have an FUL, they have a precept. I guess that is kind of like an FUEC. I'm going to imagine it's like having this certificate. So then, if that is the case, and these fellas don't have their own FUL, and they have applied for an FUL. And Hines has made the comment that he has made there and saying that he's recommending them. Why deny that you have recommended these gentlemen for a fire user's license? Why pretend that is odd to have to recommend people for something like a fire user's license? Those are my initial questions. One. Then the next thing would be this. Why is Gary, if Gary thinks that this is wrong, because if the commissioner at that point in time, in 2021, would be Gary Griffith, why is he entertaining that? If it's illegal, if it's in fact illegal and a breach, why is he entertaining that? Why not simply say there is a process, it's going through the process, this is the stage it has arrived at in the process? Because you see, or they have to get an FUL for the personal weapon. Okay. You see, when these things start to happen, and when people decide to leak screenshots in that way, and me ain't gonna vex with nobody for wanting to leak screenshots from off their phone and thing. But it disheartens the public. Because the public starts thinking, well, okay, we can't trust any of our office holders. We can't trust anybody in positions of power for a range of reasons. Nobody seems to want to be talking straight or answering things straight. And further to that, there is no real reason to pretend that you haven't made these recommendations. The other thing too is this. Griffith, during his tenure as Commissioner of Police, also went to ministers to ask them to apply for FULs. That, for me, I found that was quite, I was stunned. And I was given that information under confidence, of course. But I am aware that Griffith has gone to government ministers and insisted, message them, why haven't you applied? I'm going to send the form for you. You should apply. But that's not the role of a commissioner of police. Number one, you should be doing a risk assessment in the first place. Do a proper risk assessment before saying that this person have to have a gun or that person have to have a security detail. Yes, 29 Super C. I wouldn't say something like that if I couldn't say it. Because I was actually given the dates that Griffith wrote to the person, like WhatsApp the person and say, sir, when are you applying for an FUL? Sir, have you applied for the FUL yet? Sir, should I send the forms over for you? And I thought to me, why are you running down people to apply for gun? And the reason you would be running down people to apply for gun is this, to be able to have persons beholden to you, to use the resources of the state and use the resources of the state in a way that allows you to, I guess, curry favor with people. You know, I scratch your back, you scratch my back, that sort of thing. But I looked at that and I thought to myself, this person is prepared to offer a range of services and a range of resources. This person is prepared to leak information from a government minister, between a government minister and himself, out into the public domain. Sensitive information. And I found that was worrying, to say the least. Worrying. There is, what's the time? No, this clip is too long a clip, so I'm not going to bother to play that clip. If you get a chance, listen to that Joint Select Committee meeting. It's about 2 hours long, so if you have other things that you're doing, put it on in the background and listen to it, because it's quite interesting, the information that comes out. Hines, in the early stages of the meeting, he talks about there being about 108 crimes in the last year or so that involved legal firearms, and I was listening to that legal firearms part of the conversation. Let me play a little bit of it.
Most recent revelation by your good self yesterday in the Senate, as much as you can tell us. You indicated 108 legal firearms had been identified, used in criminal acts in Trinidad and Tobago, including 4 murders. Would you be able to tell us the time frame involved in that identification, 1? 2, would those legal firearms include firearms issued to members of the protective services, including TTPS, TT Defense Force, Coast Guard, or private security firms in Trinidad and Tobago?
Say that they were engaged in matters that had attracted the attention of the police. The time frame, I would say within recent months, I can't be more specific than that at this point, but within very recent months. And it is not confined to security firms, certainly not confined to law enforcement personnel who might have been issued with these licenses. But I got the impression from information available to me, the general population, persons who have applied for and were in receipt of firearm users license.
So just to be clear.
So, 108 instances. Let me go back to the start and let Paul Richard say it.
Most recent revelation by your good self yesterday in the Senate, as much as you can tell us. You indicated 108 legal firearms had been identified used in criminal acts in Trinidad, Tobago, including
108 legal guns used in criminal acts, and of those criminal acts, 7 were deaths, 4 were murders, and 3 were suicides, if I remember the figures correctly. So there were 4 murders and 3 suicides in that 108 the various instances from the 108 firearms. Now, I understand that dealers, under plenty pressure, and I see why they would have set up a group, and I see why they are looking to lobby for a change and an adjustment in the law. But I'm not yet convinced that the thing to do here is to put more guns in the hands of the citizenry, if only for a range of reasons. And of course, we will eventually, at some point in time, get into discussing those range of reasons. But this issue of firearms, firearm ownership, and the way in which that industry was expanded, as was said in the audio recording since last week, the industry was bust open, a bust opener industry. The way in which that industry has flourished in the last 3 years or so has been quite concerning, has raised a lot of concerns, and I suspect will raise a number of concerns for the foreseeable future. And to think, right, the audio recording for that meeting in the hands of a media house since 2021. Imagine all of this information about FULs, as well as that recording, in the hands of a media house. They're in a position to bust a big story like that. Members of the TTPS sit down with dealers and talking about how they're going to create a gun industry. And instead of using all your resources to bust a big story like that and inform the public properly about all of the things that happening with the gun industry in Trinidad and Tobago, all you're focused on how much money I earning and whether I qualified to earn the money that I earning. All them stories outside the bus, and all you're concerned about is what in my panty drawer. Anyhow, folks, come next week, I want to shift from the legal guns to the illegal guns. There's some information I'm trying to pull together because I need to be able to discuss with you all how illegal guns getting into the country. And of course, after we talk about how illegal guns getting into the country, then we will be able to talk even better about this whole business of bullets, right? Ammunition, and how not being able to track ammunition could be a serious problem with both legal and illegal guns coming into the country. But in the meantime, between now and the next time I have a live, and hopefully it will be next week Sunday, everybody who want to be checking my panty drawer, feel free to check my panty drawer. And the rest of you, thank you so much for the support this week gone here, because a lot of you were very, very supportive, reached out, let me know how you felt about things. I thank you so much for this support. Take care, have a good week. From the bumper looking fat, me pocket